$1 million lawsuit might sound like clickbait until you realize the paperwork is real, the stakes are brutal, and the silence says more than any statement could. It didn't start with press releases. It started with whispers. Then comments disappeared, posts got scrubbed, and suddenly one familiar face from 90 Day Fiancé was no longer tagging TLC or anyone from the franchise. No goodbye season, just a vanishing act no one could explain. That's when the rumors started looping. Someone allegedly crossed a line TLC won't tolerate, ever. By the time legal blogs started to mention a quietly filed civil lawsuit in California, mentioning breach of contract, malicious misrepresentation, and reputational damage, Turbo fans were already stitching it together. No names were officially public, but the hints were bloody obvious. And you didn't need a lawyer to catch the timing. This mystery lawsuit? It dropped right after a reality star's chaotic Instagram live where they bragged about behind-the-scenes secrets, made passive threats toward producers, and casually called the editing team clowns. That live vanished 10 hours later, but not before it was screen-recorded, reposted, and dissected frame by frame. Fans clocked everything: the logos, the room, even the wine label. So who's suing who? And who's got $1 million to throw around? That's where it gets messy. Based on verified court tracking platforms, a corporate plaintiff, closely tied to a media holding company, and not TLC itself, is named in the suit. But here's where the webs begin. That holding company shares legal counsel with Sharp Entertainment, the production company for 90 Day. Which means, in plain English, this lawsuit might have come from the people funding the features, not the ones airing the show. Think about that. Someone insulted the pipeline. They broke whatever fragile agreement keeps reality TV dirty just enough, without tipping into chaos so big it costs real money. And when you tick off the people under TLC, the ones pushing edit buttons, paying location crews, making sure fans stay hooked, the reaction isn't hashtags. The reaction is a bombshell lawsuit, filed in actual court systems, not canceled in comment sections. At first, fans weren't sure who it was. Reddit threads threw out 5 or 6 names, but the moment a certain ex-cast member's Cameo account vanished along with cryptic tweets about controlling puppets finally snapping, all eyes snapped back to them. Followers noticed they didn't deny anything. They fed the mystery, then dipped. Classic chaos marketing. But lawyers don't care about vibes. Lawyers care about content. Allegedly, the trigger was a series of paid exclusive interviews one former star gave to mid-size podcast channels on platforms with monetization baked in. In those interviews, they named Sharp staff. They described specific shooting conditions and blurred out 0 names. Contracts don't usually allow that, especially not while a franchise is running a spin-off season tied to your storyline. So think about the timing. Spicy tell-all interviews, a trashed Instagram live, an NDA violation detail dropped mid-TikTok, and then boom, a 7-figure lawsuit tied to damaging proprietary relationships. That phrase doesn't hit unless someone allegedly hurt how the company makes money or manages people. And trust, production staff are people. They're under intense contracts too. Most stars know better than to poke the machine like that. They throw shade, yes. They post editing isn't real, cryptic stuff, but rarely do they go full naming mode. Only someone either overconfident or absolutely fed up does that. They didn't walk a tightrope. They lit the entire circus on fire, and TLC didn't say a word publicly. That's just it. The network behaved like nothing happened. No formal announcement, no cast reshuffles announced, but notice this: upcoming spin-offs, adjusted promo timelines, and certain pairings were suddenly not being teased on social channels anymore. Fans tuned in, expecting chaos. What they got was eerie silence. When TLC buries a character, they absolutely want you to notice it, which plays right into their silent PR strategy. Don't deny, don't confirm, just re-edit the narrative till casual fans forget the person existed. But core fans remember everything, especially the loudest exits, especially the ones who used to dominate Discovery Plus thumbnails and now don't have their face even in a group collage. What's wild is that this might have started not this year, not last year, but way earlier. Log-watching fans noticed patterns, spaced out episodes, pulled storylines, inconsistent air dates during their season. Could the lawsuit have been brewing quietly for years? Could TLC have been finishing out contracts while building a legal wall behind the scenes? And here's where it gets even colder. This might have been planned months in advance. They could have been collecting receipts the entire time on someone who gave them ratings, but now suddenly gave them legal headaches too. Silence isn't always forgetting. Sometimes it's dragging. Quietly, legally, expensively. It started like all quiet bands do. One day they're featured on every TLC teaser. The next, it's like they got scrubbed from the algorithm. But this time, it wasn't subtle. This wasn't a natural phasing out. This was TLC turning the lights off on someone mid-sentence. Not even a farewell montage. Not even a messy reunion cameo to close the arc. Behind the scenes, insiders whispered the phrase, "lifetime ban." And if that sounds dramatic, it's because it is. Lifetime bans on reality shows aren't handed out like candy. They're strategic. They're surgical. They're usually triggered when someone stops being unpredictable for ratings and starts being dangerous for business. And this person crossed that line so loudly that TLC didn't even bother hiding their reaction. They just dismantled their presence like it was evidence. Now, let's talk about behavior, because TLC never bans someone for being annoying. They pay for that kind of train wreck. What they don't pay for is when talent starts exposing shooting schedules, leaking production call times, allegedly sharing unreleased scenes, accusing staffers of manipulation and naming names across platforms. That's not drama. That's breach of contract, and TLC takes that like a live wire. According to industry veterans who've worked with Sharp Entertainment, there are strict confidentiality clauses buried in every cast member contract. Not just the usual "don't spoil episodes" stuff. Real legal language about trade secrets, reputational harm, defamation, and monetizing production content without approval. It's the "you signed this and you sold us your mess" clause. And when cast members forget they signed away the behind the scenes too, things get messy real fast. This specific ban allegedly came after multiple warnings. First, when they started posting long rants about being edited unfairly, then when they joked about leaking receipts, and then when those jokes turned into full-blown content runs, sponsored posts, monetized podcasts, and explosive live streams trashing everything from TLC's contracts to props used in scenes. What set this one apart? The accusations weren't vague. They used staff members' first names. They referenced unreleased drama involving other cast members. They blurred no faces, bleeped no names. The entire tone screamed, "I'm not scared of TLC." But TLC quietly reminded everyone why they should be. Reddit threads exploded. Fans started archiving whole live streams in case takedowns came. Twitter accounts dissected contracts line by line, trying to guess which clauses got torched. Even casual viewers noticed they were missing from group interviews, Instagram collabs, even promotional slideshows, like a deleted file. But make no mistake, people didn't stop watching because of the ban. They watched harder. People love a cast member being dramatic, but banning them makes them infamous. Fans began wondering, has TLC done this before? Technically, yes. There have been people quietly removed before. Cast members who never made it to the tell-all. Some former couples who mutually walked away, but never appeared again despite huge on-screen arcs. People whose social media vanished days after finale. A handful have gone silent for years. But this case? It doesn't feel like quiet retirement. It feels like punishment, a statement, or more dangerously, control. Some fans dug up old NDA leaks from past lawsuits, dragging out examples of TLC's reputation management. Others questioned if the motivations were deeper. Was this ban truly about a clause being broken, or was it about controlling what didn't air? What if some of those deleted scenes weren't cut because they were boring, but because they showed too much? What if this person started hinting at things TLC buried for a reason? The fan theories only amplified when the band cast member's former partner, who's still technically under contract, started behaving strangely online. Passive captions, cryptic reactions, posting old photos, then deleting them. Engagement counts were suddenly dropping while comment limits quietly turned on, almost like someone wasn't allowed to speak, but wanted you to notice the silence anyway. That's when comments started appearing like clockwork under every post. Why aren't they on the Tell All? Where's the joint interview? They were in the trailer, what happened? The answers never came. The silence became the story. And yet, silence doesn't always mean safety. In fact, it often signals something way bigger boiling under the surface. If this wasn't just a lifetime ban from filming, what if it was a containment move? Something deeper than television politics, something legal, something corporate, something personal. What if they weren't banned from the show but shut out before they could speak again? They came in like a firecracker wrapped in glitter, loud, impulsive, good TV. From their very first scene, it was clear they weren't here to finesse their way through the 90-day process. They were going to bulldoze it. No filter, no compromise, no plan B. And for TLC, that was addictive. They looked like casting gold. Ratings heat, chaos with cheekbones. The kind of person who breaks all the rules while pretending they haven't read a single one. At first, fans were split. Some thought they were bold and refreshing. Others called it reckless from day one. But no matter what side of the fence you stood on, your eyes couldn't look away. The body language, the passive aggression that turned into full-throttle confrontations, the tendency to escalate when silence would have served better. It was all there, messy, watchable, monetizable. But behind every iconic meltdown, there's a fine print TLC doesn't put in the trailers. There's a line between being entertaining and being a legal nightmare. And this cast member didn't just flirt with the line, they danced on it with both middle fingers in the air. A few moments stand out. The jealousy-fueled phone smash. The airport blow-up with producers standing just off camera. That Instagram story rant where they accused the show of setting them up and tagged the wrong network 3 times. These aren't just red flags for public image. These are legal tripwires. For example, during a public livestream, they mentioned, casually, almost offhand, that a scene involving their partner's child was totally staged. That might sound like gossip, but in contract terms, that's potentially a violation. TLC markets its show as reality. Any suggestion that scenes were manipulated, especially from a contracted participant, becomes a reputational risk. That's not speculation. It's brand damage. Allegedly, and brands don't take kindly to stray matches being lit near their money. They also accused a field producer of gaslighting them, a powerful word with real-world weight. Except this wasn't in a support group or therapy room. It was blasted to 500,000 followers, straight from a verified account. The comment section turned into a battlefield, with fans picking sides before any context landed. Production sources didn't engage. But a few days later, contracts started getting terminated, not renewed. Coincidence? The irony? This star had multiple chances to scale back. They were approached gently at first, according to insider rumors. Verbal reminders, digital cease and desists, informal check-ins. But yes, allegedly, they ignored it all, or worse, played it for sympathy. Because to an attention-fueled mindset, criticism often feels like confirmation that they're the main character, even if the script is crashing around them. That's something viewers started recognizing too. The pattern. The attention-seeking loop. They'd post something controversial, immediately get backlash, delete it, then post again a week later saying, "Everyone's coming for me, but I'm just being real." And it worked. For a while. People followed. Brands collabed, interviews rolled in, and then the spiral quickened. One viral moment led to another. Fans noticed how their stories kept aligning just enough with trending drama to stay relevant. They'd insert themselves into beefs that didn't involve them, comment on couples they'd never filmed with, pop into live streams mid-meltdown, drop a line that invited speculation, then log off, leaving acres of confusion behind. But self-sabotage doesn't have to look explosive. Sometimes it's subtle, repetitive, predictable to everyone except the person doing it. That's part of the psychology behind flameouts like this. You become addicted to the noise, the reaction becomes the reward, and as soon as you feel the spotlight shrinking, you throw another grenade, even if you're the one standing closest when it explodes. Fans began pointing out posts where they'd contradict themselves publicly, say they were done with TLC, then post "can't wait for the next tell-all" days later. Say they were silenced, then link out to a Patreon promising secrets being exposed. It wasn't clarity, it was chaos with subtitles, and eventually, platforms started tightening around them. Demonetization, video removals, partnership snubs, not because of opinions, but because allegations can't live online indefinitely without receipts. And when brands are watching, everything gets screenshot twice, and still, they posted. Even when followers warned them in the comments, even when castmates unfollowed. Maybe because deep down, some part of them didn't care about being back on TV anymore. Just being seen, being right, being loud enough to drown out anything that threatened their version of events. Except there was one scene, aired months ago, that struck fans differently. Not viral in the usual sense. No tears, no yelling. Just one moment that came off. Their partner said something vulnerable, something about needing distance, and instead of acknowledging it, this person smirked, changed the subject, then looked directly into the camera. Not by accident. That look didn't sit right then. It sits even worse now. What if that exact scene was the start of all this unraveling? Nothing explodes reality TV faster than contractual betrayal. Because 90 Day Fiancé isn't Looney Tunes. It's a business. Layered, ironclad, and engineered to control chaos while monetizing every breath a cast member takes, every screaming match, every awkward hug, every surprise bedroom confession. It's all covered under something the viewers never get to see. The contract. The cast doesn't just show up and get filmed, they sign their names onto pages and pages of legal commands dressed in plain language. Language built to look friendly, but designed to trap. Those documents are loaded with non-disclosure agreements, morals clauses, appearance restrictions, and exclusivity windows. These aren't suggestion sheets, they're weapons, and once you break one, especially in public, the consequences don't come slow, they crash in overnight. Now the essentials. TLC isn't the only player here. Sharp Entertainment handles most of the production, and they're known for being meticulous. Their contracts typically require the cast to stay completely hush-hush during filming, throughout airing, and sometimes even 6 to 12 months afterward. That means no live reveals, no unauthorized podcasts, no calling out editors, and definitely no monetizing behind-the-scenes drama. The second money enters the picture, especially money earned from stories that weren't cleared. The issue upgrades from casting problem to legal target. The former 90 Day star at the center of this mess? They didn't just hint at scenes being fake. They offered paid interviews exposing entire production patterns. They reportedly released DMs with producers without censorship. They even teased an unaired plotline on a subscriber-based channel where fans had to pay to watch. It was wild. Fans were shocked, but lawyers, they were probably taking screenshots with timestamps. It's not even subtle. The moment you reveal anything about your contract publicly, you're asking for trouble. But this case went off-road, because somewhere along the way, it seems like they either stopped believing TLC would respond, or they started daring TLC to fire back. Reports suggest the star began crafting an entirely independent brand using footage and references from the show, capitalizing on former cast TikToks, and doing self-booked press using the 90 Day name as bait. Again, to viewers, it looks like one person flipping the bird at a giant network. To corporate eyes, that's a brand hijack. Unauthorized use of intellectual property, breach of image licensing. Even phrases like exclusive tell all might have triggered red legal flags if they implied access to unreleased info. Worse, once the line was crossed and TLC didn't react immediately, the behavior escalated. That's what these patterns look like, rebellion that scales with silence, and then suddenly things start disappearing. Contracts vanish, cast members are removed from group chats, access to insiders freezes. Their partner, still under contract, looks increasingly uncomfortable on social media. It's the beginning of an invisible wall, the kind no one posts about publicly, but everyone in the industry recognizes instantly. Fans who've followed past controversies know what this feels like. When someone stops filming but doesn't confirm, when they're missing from spin-offs they clearly qualified for, when reunion hosts avoid mentioning them entirely. That's not miscommunication. That's deliberate redaction. A few cast veterans have hinted that breaking your NDA doesn't always bring an instant lawsuit. Sometimes they wait. They watch. They gather every misstep and wait for the money trail to connect. Because the more a band cast member leverages their own image based on stories TLC legally owns, the more leverage TLC has in court. And it's not like the contracts themselves are up for negotiation. Once inked, it's in. You're locked in sponsorship windows, brand speech control, and in some cases you're forbidden from mentioning other franchises or appearing on competitor platforms for a set period. So when this individual started name-dropping Netflix during a chaotic livestream, fans clocked it immediately. Aggressive much? Foolish? Or a calculated dare? Everything points to a person who either didn't understand or willingly ignored the kind of leash they were actually on. Because 90-day doesn't just drop people. It quarantines them, makes them louder in absence, and waits for them to burn themselves out. And still, the content kept coming. Stories got more dramatic, details more reckless. People began comparing it to when other ex-cast members got blacklisted years ago. But even then, this case stands apart. Because it's not just that the contracts were broken, it's how publicly, how stubbornly, how messily it was all done, with full awareness eyes were watching. Which brings us here. To the part where fans realized this wasn't just about breaking the rules. This might have been about someone tearing up like 3 different contracts at once, on camera, online, mid-meltdown, monetized and packaged with hashtags. What started as quirky oversharing has snowballed into silence from producers, missing contract renewals, and possible corporate-level blowback. Did a minor rule break grow into a major internal panic? The camera always lies a little, but in this case, maybe it never lied enough. Because behind the scenes of the chaos playing out on screen was something way darker, more abrasive, and totally unscripted. The outbursts shown to viewers were barely the tip of the breakdown. The real implosions? They happened when the red lights on the cameras went off, and in some cases, when the cast forgot they were still being recorded. Alleged DMs began surfacing just days after the lawsuit whispers started, screenshots from people claiming to be ex-assistants, anonymous messages hinting at on-set drama between crew and talent, angry rants from the band stars' close friends who later deleted everything. One message in particular stood out. It showed a warning from a team member pleading with the star, begging them to stop going live while intoxicated, calling their behavior reputation suicide and saying you're giving them exactly what they need to bury you. Nobody denied it. It circulated wide for 24 hours. Then it vanished, along with the person who posted it. That's where the shady management comes in, because suddenly, accounts linked to old business managers began redirecting. Followers were wiped clean. Contact pages went blank. Podcast bookings that had been teased were canceled without notice. Emails went unanswered. Meanwhile, the band star kept claiming they were being set up, but wouldn't say by who. Even their own narrative felt half-cooked and reactive, like they were inventing reasons mid-comment thread instead of sticking to a strategy. And maybe that's because there never was one. Just noise. Part of what has fans truly obsessive is the sheer number of contradictions. On the show, they presented as emotionally overwhelmed, confused, and supposedly gaslit by their partner. Off the show? They were IG story hopping, calling castmates crybaby actors, posting "watch what they cut" during fresh airings, and teasing lawsuits that never materialized. It didn't add up. Add the polar opposite tones, public victim, private instigator, and you realize this wasn't someone flipping once. This was someone becoming a contradiction in real time. Even their most staunch defenders began to glitch out. Reddit threads from last year that praised them started turning. Screenshots got re-examined. People started putting timestamps side by side with things said on air. In one scene, they cried over being ignored. Meanwhile, on Twitter, they'd posted a proud, "Can't stand that soft crap, emotions are a trap" message the same week. Not a hater edit, not out of context, just plain contradiction. And when you build a reality TV persona so heavily on pain, those blips hit hard. It didn't help that their partner went radio silent. Not total silence, but reaction silence, posting food, sunsets, generic quotes about letting go, no direct comment, no denials, no defense. From a brand standpoint, it was smart, but to fans it looked like retreat, voluntary or forced, impossible to confirm, but the couple accounts went inactive. Saved highlights were removed. Anything that could have pissed off the legal side of TLC, gone. Some insiders say that production had to rewrite entire tell-all prep documents because this person was no longer part of the final cast, not optioned, not invited, not allowed. Even more bizarre? Allegedly, one day before filming, another cast member backed out, refusing to be collateral damage in what they called a legal firestorm waiting to jump platforms. Fans initially thought it was about COVID protocols. Now, they're not so sure. And there's history for this kind of chaos. A look back at earlier seasons shows a pattern rarely broken. Cast members implode, make noise online, claim mistreatment, and then slowly spiral down into fandom memory. Remember the couple from the Brazilian storyline a few years back, the ones tied to charges and pregnancy rumors and false social media branding? They too slipped into oblivion after breaking contracts and trying to expose production. This isn't new, but the scale this time is way louder and way more visible. By now, it's not even about who's right or wrong. It's about build-up. And this kind of emotional blowout builds for years. Quietly, fractures start early. A bad day on set becomes a fight. A disrespectful edit becomes a grudge. A few angry tweets become motives. It sits. It stews. It boils over. And when it does, no filter survives the pressure, not even self-preservation. What makes this case more explosive is that some of these behind-the-scenes fights were visible all along. Cast confessionals were full of warning signs. One producer interview scene showed the cast member trying to argue about which angle their partner had been shot from, claiming, "You're doing this intentionally to make me look weak." That footage aired. At the time, fans laughed. They replayed it for the drama. But now, it plays differently. When someone's shouting at production during a taping, the iceberg is already halfway above water. And if you're the kind of viewer who watches closely, you might remember a scene last season that suddenly matters more. During a tense couch confessional, a different cast member, completely unrelated to this mess, paused mid-sentence and said, "You think we're the wild ones? Wait a couple months. Y'all haven't seen Real Crazy yet." At the time, no one knew what to make of it. Just a throwaway comment, random shade. But now fans are asking, were they warning us? And did we miss the biggest red flag of the entire season? At first, clout feels like magic. Every notification lands like a little high. The followers roll in. Your name trends. Brands reach out. Suddenly, you're not just a reality star. You're an influencer, a talking point, a headline magnet. And for some 90-day cast members, that's where they try to stay forever. Popularity is no longer a means to build stability. It becomes the drug. But TLC doesn't pay for addiction. It pays for narrative, for polished arcs, rough edges shaped into TV gold. And once those edges start spinning outside of TLC's control, especially for profit, they don't just pause the storyline. They pull the plug. Fame and chaos have different contracts. When you sign with a network show like 90 Day, you're signing up for very specific visibility. You're part of the machine. What you say, how you frame your story, when and where you post, almost all of it is regulated in ways fans rarely understand. Sure, you get your paycheck, but it's not superstar money. In some seasons, that base pay barely covers the rent. You sign up knowing the check isn't the real prize, the exposure is. And that's where the thirst begins. You get a taste of virality. You see your name on subreddits, watch your follower count tick like a slot machine, and suddenly the weekly paycheck from TLC feels small compared to a 5-figure brand deal from an energy drink company that wants to slap your face on a bottle. But here's the catch. Those brands want chaos. They're not paying for good behavior. They're paying for spectacle, and spectacle doesn't survive within the neat little lines TLC draws on paper. This cast member started leaning way into that chaos. Selfies turned to thirst traps, comments turned to Q&As with veiled threats toward production. They stopped waiting for episodes to air before teasing what was edited out. Fans who asked respectful questions were fine. Fans who didn't? Blocked. Or worse, tagged and mocked. Their page shifted from behind-the-scenes fun to explosive confessionals with zero mention of NDA boundaries. At one point, their live stream count quadrupled overnight, not because people liked them, but because they were now the center of implosion rumors. It didn't matter whether the views were hate or support. What mattered was the number, clicks, comments, conversions. There's a certain rush only public controversy gives, and this person was hooked. The problem is that obsessive fame doesn't build vertically. You don't grow steadily. You spike, and when the drama dries up, you have to create your own. That's when the manipulation starts. Fake beefs, staged fights, cryptic tweets aimed at cast members followed by, "Who do you think I'm talking about?" surveys. It all feels like performance, but the stakes are real, because fans behave differently when they smell blood. And that chaos? It stays online forever. Suddenly, the brand that wanted you as an ambassador ghosts you. The podcast that wanted to book you for a second episode cancels. The story becomes cast member spirals instead of cast member wins. Followers noticed that every time their engagement began to dip, suddenly a new truth would get posted. Sometimes it was a voice note about a co-star, other times a secret about filming, or a mental breakdown that was live-streamed in real time, only to be deleted after 2 hours and reposted by dozens of fan accounts. It became harder and harder to tell what was real and what was engineered. And TLC? They'd seen this before. They've let people implode quietly when the chaos stayed self-contained. But when it goes viral, when third-party reporters start retweeting meltdown clips and sponsors start forwarding emails, that's when network damage assessments begin. For TLC, the pattern is more dangerous than the moment. If you present like a liability to their reputation, if you stop being unpredictable and start being uncontrollable, the calculation flips. Attention doesn't matter anymore. Risk does. And what started as clumsy self-branding becomes a threat to every other cast member still under contract. Worse, the ecosystem around this person fed into the performance. Everyone wanted a piece. The managers, the podcast hosts, even the fan pages pretending to be neutral. Everyone encouraged the spiral. Tell your truth. Expose them. We got your back. But no one told them the real truth. That attention without structure crumbles. That once people stop tuning in for curiosity, all that's left is spectacle fatigue. That when your entire value is teachable drama, you don't get cast again. You get remembered for going off-script, unpaid, unrepaired. And that's when the monetization shifted. Suddenly they weren't on TLC, but promising PayPal-based exclusive tea. They weren't securing brand placements, but collecting donations during live breakdowns. It stopped looking like hustle and started smelling like exploitation of themselves. Because once the network cuts you off, so does the infrastructure, the checks, the PR brushes, the quiet damage control. You're left staging your own downfall and hoping someone pays for the front row seat. And now people are asking, was this all intentional? Was the drama ever real? Or was the downfall the business plan all along? The biggest shifts don't always come from the people at the center of the chaos. Sometimes they come from who doesn't react. And when one of the most chaotic disputes in 90-day history caught fire, fans weren't just watching the headlines, they were reading everything. The cast comments, emojis dropped under memes, random unfollows, cryptic quotes no one directly admitted were about anyone, but everybody already knew who they meant. It's almost like you could track the timeline of fallout by watching Instagram. Some cast members said absolutely nothing. No comments, no likes, no reposted drama clips. You would have thought they were off-grid, but they weren't. Stories kept going up. Coffee pics, family dinners, soft-core travel reels, the usual fluff, but no engagement with this nuclear-level mess. For longtime watchers, that silence wasn't casual. It was loud, strategic, possibly forced. Some fans even suspect TLC might have advised current cast not to touch the situation at all, not even indirectly. No interviews, no think pieces. Just let it burn on its own. Others couldn't help themselves. A few dropped what looked like innocent quotes on their stories, but hit way too close for comfort. One wrote, "Get your act together before the world has to." Another went with, "Don't confuse exposure for respect." There were no tags, but the timing didn't lie. And then, of course, came the side eyes. Comments left under producers' posts weren't even subtle. Fire emojis, clapping hands. Y'all did what needed to be done. These same accounts had been close to the band star last season, doing lives together, tagging each other in memes. Now those friendships looked deleted, unrecoverable, and not a single one explained why. One cast member made headlines for doing an entire Q&A without saying a word about the situation, and this was someone known for being extremely online. Every fan kept waiting for it. Every new slide had hearts, eyes, spill it comments stacked. But nope. They answered 10 unrelated questions and logged off. Either they were fiercely loyal or fiercely scared. Because when drama gets this big, choosing sides isn't a social media move, it's career math. Then there's the cluster of former cast who saw the fire and ran straight toward it. One ex-couple, long removed from the show, reactivated their shared YouTube just to post a reaction video that conveniently lined up with the scandal hitting its peak. Did they name names? No. Did they leave breadcrumb clues fans couldn't resist decoding? Absolutely. Within hours, word-for-word theories started circulating in fan circles. This wasn't just drama, it was content now. And in most of their clips, there came a moment where they'd say something like, "We're not surprised," or "This has been coming for a while," then cut to a knowing smirk, not even pretending to be objective. Everyone now had a pretext to jump in, make money, or boost views using someone else's spiral. No one was above it. The line between shade and strategy blurred further when fan pages started highlighting old reunion clips where this person had beef with more than one co-star, all of whom are now curiously absent from public commentary. Coincidence? Probably not. It's safer for them to disappear than get dragged into an active legal circus, but the timing never goes unnoticed. The reactions weren't just about loyalty. Some cast members seemed to be protecting their own contracts. Everyone's seen examples of what happens to loud side characters who jump into drama uninvited. Fans can think it's stirring the pot, but TLC might think it's interference. Then came that one post, innocent on the surface, with a long caption about choosing peace, paired with a mirror selfie and a coffee cup. The energy wasn't peaceful. It was passive-aggressive with whipped cream on the side. But what made the post viral wasn't the caption. It was the comments. Pages of, "You're so real for this," "We know who you're talking about," and "Stay booked, not bitter." One even posted, "You're next if you keep pushing it." That comment? Left untouched for days. No delete. No response. Like bait hanging there just long enough for fans to go feral. So what did the cast actually say? Most of them said nothing, but they showed everything. In who they unfollowed, in what stories ended early, in the sudden disappearance of collab content, in TikTok drafts that got dropped, then deleted 5 seconds later when comments guessed too accurately. Fans are now convinced that behind the silence, behind the smiles, behind the legal tap dance moves, there was still one telling moment, a fake neutral post, mild tone, calming font, a typewritten quote graphic pulling something vague from a self-help book. But buried halfway through it was the line, "Some people mistake destruction for legacy. Let them." And to the internet, that said all they needed to hear. TLC doesn't panic publicly. That's not how the machine works. When one of their reality stars veers off-brand, goes rogue, or starts melting down in real time across multiple platforms, their first move isn't a dramatic press conference, it's calculated silence. Not because they're unbothered, but because spinning drama requires leverage, and TLC never fires the first shot. They wait, watch, strategize, then restructure the narrative like you were never supposed to ask questions in the first place. That's how damage control looks when billions of ad dollars are behind the curtain. On paper, this type of legal spiral should have been a PR wildfire. A lawsuit, a band cast member going full scorched earth online, former stars chiming in with shady support, the whole internet watching it unfold. But where networks like Bravo or MTV might have leaned in with branded tell-alls or strategic leaks, TLC reached for its sharpest weapon, erasure. No official statement, no press briefing. No, we wish them the best. What vanished wasn't just the person's name. Entire plot lines involving them got minimized. Media kits adjusted. Social accounts quietly deleted archived posts. Promotional materials featuring their face stopped appearing 2 weeks ahead of a spin-off rollout. Their dramatic pivot from main character to missing piece wasn't subtle. It was strategic, and here's why. TLC doesn't survive on scandal alone. It survives on brand trust. That means being messy, but never reckless. Letting couples explode, but making sure the network never looks like the villain. When someone starts dragging the curtain open on production secrets or threatening backstage transparency in interviews, TLC doesn't fix it publicly. They fix it with small, precise removals. Their entire playbook is built around surgical swaps. One star burns out? Replace them with another more chaotic, more likable, or more sympathetic. They've done it for years. It's why spin-offs exist in clusters, why The Other Way and Before the 90 Days nearly always feature overlapping couples with different edit angles. It's why cut footage becomes teaser content for upcoming specials. Every show is built with an escape route. Every personality has a backup lined up. But this time, the cleanup feels different, because what's happening isn't just cast damage, it's potential corporate damage. Lawsuits don't stay quiet forever. Fans are smarter now. Screenshots, leaks, contract hints, they piece it all together quicker than the network can reshuffle. Long-running viewers are watching more than the show. They're watching who's getting erased from the lineup and why. And TLC? They're not just trying to snuff out one fire, they're protecting the format itself. Because if one cast member proves you can tell your truth after breaching contract, monetize it, and stay relevant, that sets a precedent. Suddenly everyone else wants to take their version of things off-platform, lose the control, lose the narrative, lose the pipeline. That's the real threat. So what does TLC do? They isolate, quietly. They create distance, but behind a smile. Other cast members are discouraged from engaging publicly. NDA reminders go out disguised as casual updates. Those who don't listen disappear next. But the public doesn't see the push. They only see the silence and assume everyone's moved on. And here's where the hidden agenda theory starts gaining traction. What if this scandal wasn't just a PR threat, but raw material? What if the same chaos that supposedly hurt the brand is being groomed for a future plotline, not redemption, restructuring? What if TLC is watching the social spirals, saving whatever's salvageable and planning a flip later? The network has history. They've turned former disasters into plotlines before. Reunions have used old controversies as cold opens. Tell-alls have featured guests no one thought would ever return. Because controversy still converts, it pulls views even from hate watchers. As long as the legal side is handled carefully, cut off the speech but keep the story, TLC can find a way to fold the chaos back in when the heat cools just enough. There's a reason the network didn't rush to erase every trace. Some clips remain online. Some story arcs casually reference the banned person in vague terms. Some production insiders still watch those social posts, likely cataloging what's usable later, when the dust clears and the audience needs a "where are they now" spark. It's possible the platform is already planning to reframe the narrative. A future season featuring old castmates reacting to the scandal. A Trials of 90-Day miniseries. A special where the person is shown only through other people's words, their downfall scripted into someone else's redemption arc. That's the twisted genius of TLC's damage control. When done right, you don't just forget the scandal. You end up watching the remix 6 months later, not even realizing you're still feeding the same fire. So now the big fan question isn't whether this star is banned for good, but whether TLC's already prepping the next edit. One where they control the chaos again, this time with all the fallout branded, timed, and script-ready. You'd think people would be over it by now. After hundreds of hours of messiness, shady relationships, public meltdowns, and cast members turning TikTok into war zones, surely the fatigue would set in. And for some viewers, it has. Comments like, "This show's gone too far," or "same formula every season," have become more common. Longtime fans say they're tired of watch parties feeling like court trials. They remember when 90 Days started with language barriers and awkward dinners. Now it's burner phones, trickle-truthing, and cast members threatening to sue each other before lunch. But here's the problem. Viewer exhaustion doesn't always mean people walk away. Sometimes it means they lean in deeper, not because they love it, because they can't look away. That's the power of hate watching. It's not about enjoying the show anymore. It's about needing to see what happens next, even if you roll your eyes the whole time. It's yelling at your screen, watching through your fingers, screenshotting cringe captions and sending them to your group chat with "this is why I'm done," right before you open the next episode anyway. People come online and say, "I can't even tell who's lying anymore," and then immediately binge the next 3 episodes looking for clues. A big chunk of the fanbase knows the show is edited to provoke reactions. They know some storylines feel fake, overproduced, or exaggerated. But that hasn't killed the engagement. If anything, it's made viewers more analytical. They treat episodes like puzzles, hunting for bloopers, inconsistencies, codes in the edits. And this scandal? It's deepened that obsession. Pages that used to post lighthearted memes are now threading timelines of events, offering legal commentary, and decoding shady captions. Fans are tracking cast moves across platforms like digital paparazzi, pointing out every suspicious post delete, every sudden photo crop. They're exhausted by the drama, sure, but they're also participating like never before. And that's what makes this explosion different, because even casual fans are starting to clock the cycle. TLC brings in a new couple someone's instantly suspicious of. Mid-season, the red flags fly. Either they're scammers, fame chasers, or just plain difficult. Fans complain, ratings spike. The show milks the tension till it reaches a breaking point. The cast member goes rogue after filming ends, posts meltdown videos, drops spoilers, maybe threatens lawsuits or accuses the show of manipulation. TLC quietly cuts ties. Then the cycle resets with the next couple. Now, some viewers are wondering, are we being played? Are these blow-ups intentional? Or at least expected? Are we watching chaotic people snap under real pressure? Or performers leaning into roles that guarantee screen time? And the answer might be somewhere in the middle, because reality TV thrives on edge-of-the-line behavior. Not too clean, not too illegal, just messy enough to keep you emotionally unsteady. And once that formula works, shows double down. They cast louder people,